I want you to close your eyes for a second. Seriously, just for a moment. Picture yourself standing on the bridge of this massive ocean liner.
Okay.
You're in the middle of the North Atlantic. It's night. The wind is just howling. The waves are, 40 feet high, crashing over the bow. And you can see these jagged shapes of icebergs bobbing in the distance.
Right. It's a pretty intense scene.
It is. But the ship is moving. It's cutting through the water. It's adjusting to the swells, turning sharply to avoid the ice. I mean, it looks like it knows exactly what it's doing. It looks purposeful.
It's a powerful image. It feels very sturdy, very controlled.
It does. But here's the horror movie twist. You fight your way across the deck, you kick open the heavy steel door to the captain's quarters, and you're expecting to see, some grizzled mariner gripping the wheel.
Maybe smoking a pipe.
Yeah, smoking a pipe, eyes locked on the horizon. But the room is empty. The chair is vacant. And the wheel is just turning back and forth, left and right, all on its own. There is no one driving. There never was.
That is the stuff of nightmares. It gives you a sense of vertigo just thinking about it.
Welcome to the concept of the uncaptained ship. We are back for deep dive number 8 into Robert Sapolsky's Determined, a science of life without free will. And if that opening image made you feel a little sick to your stomach, that is entirely appropriate.
It's a good place to start.
Because today, we are finally leaving the biology lab.
Right. And I think it's important to situate ourselves here. We have spent the last 7 discussions down in the physiological.
Totally. Neurons, hormones.
We've looked at the neurons, the hormones, the childhood trauma, the evolutionary pressures. We have, built the machine piece by piece to understand why Sapolsky argues that free will is a total myth. We've looked at the how.
We know the engine exists. We know the mechanics. But today, the mission changes completely. Today, we are asking, if this is true, if there really is no captain on the bridge, what does that do to the passengers?
And what does it do to the rules of the ship?
Exactly. If Sapolsky is right, and biology plus environment equals everything, we have to face the absolute elephant in the room. What happens to religion? What happens to crime and punishment?
And maybe most personally, what happens to us? This is where the rubber meets the road socially. Because if we strip away the concept of choice, if we say that human beings are just, complicated biological equations.
You're taking a sledgehammer to everything.
To the foundations of how we've organized civilization for the last 5,000 years.
It feels incredibly dangerous. I mean, I consider myself a fairly rational person. I love the science we've been discussing. But even I have this little panic button in the back of my head.
I think we all do.
It just says, hey, if you tell everyone they're just biological robots and there's no God-keeping score, won't they just burn the city down?
That is the big fear. It is the fear that without the bridle of free will or, the threat of divine judgment, humans will revert to monsters. It's the fear that the only thing keeping your neighbor from stealing your car is the belief that he chose to be a good person.
Which is a pretty bleak view of humanity when you think about it.
It is, but here is where this deep dive gets surprising. Sapolsky has gathered a mountain of data that suggests the exact opposite.
That feels entirely counterintuitive. You're saying telling people they aren't responsible might make them better.
I'm saying the data is weird. It's not what you'd expect, and we need to look at it. We're going to look at some really strange corners of history and psychology today to figure this out.
Okay.
We're going to talk about a nefarious neurosurgeon. We're going to revisit the witch trials of the 16th century, and we're going to see why atheists, specifically a certain type of atheist, might actually be the most moral people in the room.
Okay, let's start with a nightmare scenario. Because running amok feels like a very legitimate fear. I mean, if I'm not responsible for my actions, if I'm just a leaf blowing in the wind of my genetics, why shouldn't I just take your wallet right now?
Well, philosophers have been worrying about you stealing my wallet for a long time. Sapolsky brings up a thought experiment popularized by the philosopher Daniel Dennett to illustrate this anxiety. It's called the Nefarious Neurosurgeon.
It sounds like a bad B-movie villain from the 1950s.
It does, but the premise is actually quite chilling. Imagine a surgeon operates on a patient for something routine, let's say an appendectomy. The patient is under anesthesia, totally out.
Standard procedure.
But when the patient wakes up, the surgeon is standing over him with this creepy smile and whispers, "I have bad news. While I was in there, I installed a radio chip in your brain. You are now my puppet.
Oh, well.
I control your thoughts, your movements, your desires. You have no free will. Every time you think you're making a choice, it's just me pressing a button on my remote."
So the patient believes his agency is completely gone. He's a passenger in his own body.
Exactly. And the philosophical fear, the Hobbesian fear really, is that this patient will walk out of the hospital and immediately commit a crime. He'll rob a liquor store or punch a stranger.
And his reasoning would be?
Well, it's not me doing it, it's the surgeon pressing the buttons. I'm off the hook. I am not a moral agent anymore.
It's the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card. The perfect excuse.
It is. And historically, we've seen versions of this defense. I mean, think about the Nuremberg trials after World War II. The defense was, I was just following orders.
Right, my commander made me do it. I surrendered my agency to a higher power, so you can't blame me.
Sapolsky argues we are facing a modern biological version of the Nuremberg defense. Instead of my commander, it's my amygdala made me do it. Or my genes made me do it.
Or my bad childhood.
Or my bad childhood, my high testosterone, you name it. The fear is that if we popularize this science, people will look at their own bad behavior and say, don't blame me, I'm just a machine with a glitch.
But has anyone actually tested this? Because it's one thing to have a philosophical debate about a hypothetical chip in the brain. It's another thing to see if real people actually turn into jerks when you tell them free will is a lie.
Oh yeah, we have data. Scientists have tried to replicate the Nefarious neurosurgeon in the lab. Sapolsky details a series of studies, often referred to as the Crick experiments.
Named after Francis Crick, the DNA guy.
The very same. Later in his life, Crick became a hard determinist and a neuroscientist. He wrote a book called The Astonishing Hypothesis.
I've heard of it.
And in it, he has this famous, rather brutal passage where he essentially says, you, your joys and your sorrows, your memories and your ambitions, your sense of personal identity and free will are in fact no more than the behavior of a vast assembly of nerve cells and their associated molecules.
Nothing but a pack of neurons. That is bleak.
Yeah.
It's incredible how reductive that feels.
It is reductionist in the extreme. So researchers used that specific text as a weapon. They took a group of participants and had them read that passage, priming them with this heavy scientific message that they are just biological machines, that their self is an illusion.
And then what?
Then, immediately after they read it, the researchers put them in situations where they could cheat.
Give me an example. What kind of cheating are we talking about?
Simple stuff, usually. Solving math problems for a small cash reward where they could easily fudge the numbers to get more money.
Oh, I see. So it's self-reported.
Exactly. Or a scenario where they could keep money that accidentally fell out of an envelope, things like that.
And the people who read Crick, the ones who were told they were just neurons.
They cheated more. They were less likely to help a stranger. There was even a study involving hot sauce, the famous hot sauce revenge study.
Please tell me this involves actual hot sauce.
It does. Participants were primed with these anti-free will messages and then put in a social scenario where they were rejected or slighted by another person.
Okay.
When given the chance to prepare a snack for that person later, the people who had read the anti-free will text doled out significantly more spicy hot sauce. They became more aggressive.
So the nightmare is real. You tell someone they're a robot, and they act like a broken robot. They become petty and vindictive. That sounds like a slam dunk for the we need the lie argument.
It looks that way.
It sounds like we should burn Sapolsky's book for the good of humanity.
It does look that way, doesn't it? If the science stopped there, we'd be in trouble. We would have to conclude that the noble lie of free will is the only thing holding society together. But Sapolsky urges us to look closer.
Okay, what's the catch?
First of all, the effect sizes in these studies were statistically significant, but they were small. We aren't talking about a sudden wave of homicides. We're talking about slightly more hot sauce and a few stolen dollars.
So it's not like they went on a crime spree.
Not at all. But the real aha moment, the thing that flips the narrative, comes when we look at who was doing the cheating.
Who was it? Are you saying it wasn't everyone?
It definitely wasn't everyone. To understand this, you have to visualize a graph. Sapolsky calls it the Valley of the Indifferent, or the U-shaped curve of belief.
Okay, I'm visualizing a big letter U. Walk me through it.
On the far left peak of the U, you have Category A. These are the committed skeptics. These are people who have spent years reading philosophy, studying biology, maybe reading Sapolsky. They have firmly concluded, free will does not exist. I am a biological machine.
So these are the Sapolskys of the world.
Yeah.
The diehards. The people who've really done the homework.
Right. Then, on the far right peak, you have Category C, the true believers, people who firmly believe in agency, personal responsibility, the soul, and that we are the captains of our ships.
Okay. Skeptics on the left, believers on the right. Who is stuck in the middle, in the dip?
That's Category B, the waverers. the middle trough of the U. These are people who haven't really thought about it much. Their beliefs are mushy.
I don't know, maybe crowd?
Exactly. They are easily swayed by whatever they just read on Facebook, or a convincing conversation at a bar, or in this case, a paragraph by Francis Crick. They're just kind of floating along.
Okay, so you have the firm skeptics, the firm believers, and the mushy middle.
Exactly. Now, when those running amok experiments were done, the people doing the cheating and the hot saucing were almost entirely from category B.
The waivers.
Yes. The manipulation worked on the confused middle. But here is the critical finding. When you compare category A, the hardcore skeptics, and category C, the hardcore believers, there is zero difference in their ethical behavior.
Wait, really, let me get this straight. The people who are convinced they are biological robots are just as nice as the people who think they are agents of God.
Yes, and that is the safety net. People who have arrived at free will skepticism through deep thought category A don't suddenly become monsters. They are just as honest, just as generous, and just as moral as the most devout believer.
Why is that? If they don't believe they're responsible in the cosmic sense, why return the wallet? Why not put the hot sauce in?
Because their morality isn't based on a fear of punishment or a magical belief in choice. It's based on an internal framework they've built. They've wrestled with the implications. They realize that just because you can do harm doesn't mean you should.
It's more of a reasoned morality.
You could say that. In fact, many argue that realizing you are a product of luck makes you more compassionate, not less. If I know that the person annoying me is annoying because of their biology, I'm less likely to want to punish them. I might just feel sorry for them.
So the danger isn't the knowledge itself. The danger is a shallow understanding of the knowledge.
Precisely. The danger is the whatever crowd, the apathy. The danger lies in being unmoored. But if you anchor yourself in the truth of determinism, you can still be a good person.
This feels like a perfect bridge to the other pillar of this discussion, religion. Because Sapolsky draws a very sharp parallel here. We worry that without free will, we'll run amok.
And we worry that without God, we'll run amok. It's the exact same fear mechanism. Sapolsky uses atheism as a model system to predict what a post-free will world might look like.
Right, there's that famous quote attributed to Dostoevsky and the brothers Karamazov. If there is no God, everything is permitted.
Which is a terrifying thing to hear, mostly because of what it says about the person saying it.
Totally. It implies the only reason they aren't murdering people right now is because they're afraid of hellfire.
It is a very cynical view of human nature. It assumes we are all latent psychopaths held in check only by the police or by God. But Sapolsky digs into the anthropology of this. He cites research by Arner and Zion on moralizing gods.
Moralizing gods.
This was news to me. The idea that God is watching you is actually a relatively new invention in human history.
Wait, I thought religion was as old as humanity. Cave paintings, rituals, all that.
Religion is. But judgmental religion isn't. If you look at hunter-gatherer societies, which is how humans lived for 99% of our existence, they had gods. They had spirits.
Okay.
But those gods were usually indifferent tricksters. They didn't care if you stole food or lied to your neighbor. They were more interested in whether you performed the rain dance correctly.
Why not? Why wouldn't a god care about you being a good person?
Because they didn't need to. In a hunter-gatherer band, you lived with the same 30 or 50 people your entire life. You were cousins with half of them. Everyone knew you.
So there's no anonymity.
Zero. If you were a jerk, you didn't need a god to punish you. Your aunt would punish you. The tribe would ostracize you, which was basically a death sentence. Morality was enforced by the fact that you couldn't hide.
Ah, I see. It was social surveillance. You didn't need a supernatural cop because you had actual neighbors watching you 24/7.
Exactly. The moralizing gods, the ones who see through walls, read your thoughts, and punish you in the afterlife, only appeared when we started building cities.
When we started living with strangers.
Right. Suddenly, you could steal a loaf of bread in the market and disappear into a crowd of 5,000 people. You could be anonymous. The social pressure evaporated.
So we needed a new form of surveillance.
We essentially invented a surveillance camera in the sky. It was a cultural adaptation to solve the problem of strangers. You might fool the police, but you can't fool Zeus.
That makes so much sense. It's an incredibly clever hack for social cohesion. But does it work? I mean, are the people who believe in the sky camera actually better behaved than the people who don't?
That's the big question. And the answer brings us back to that U-shaped curve. In daily bread scenarios, just everyday honesty and kindness, there is very little difference between a committed atheist and a committed theist.
Define daily bread for me.
Everyday life. Not a war zone, not a crisis, just do you tip the waiter? Do you help someone who dropped their papers? Do you lie on your taxes?
The small moral choices of an average Tuesday.
That's it. And in these situations, the daily bread atheists, people who have reached atheism through struggle and thought, are highly moral. They often behave better than the apatheists.
The epatheists.
The people for whom religion is just background noise, they go to church on Christmas and Easter, maybe. Sapolsky jokes it's the people who choose skiing over church on a Sunday morning. They just don't care that much either way.
So again, it's the mushy middle that's the problem, not the firm believers or the firm non-believers.
It seems to be. The data suggests that deep conviction, regardless of its content, correlates with pro-social behavior.
Sapolsky mentions Scandinavia here as the ultimate proof, doesn't he?
Yes, the Scandinavian paradox. If the no God equals chaos theory were true, places like Sweden, Norway, and Denmark should be burning to the ground. They are some of the most secular atheist societies on Earth. Church attendance is microscopic.
And yet they're famous for being safe, orderly, and having high social trust.
Exactly. They are often described as Edenic. They have low crime, high volunteerism, high social welfare. They prove empirically that you can build a highly moral, functioning society without the threat of divine judgment.
Which is his bigger point.
His argument is, if we can do it without God, we can do it without free will. We just need to replace the fear of judgment with something else.
But this leads us to the hardest part of the book.
Yeah.
And I think this is where listeners might feel a little resistance. Because if we strip away free will, we aren't just stripping away fear. We are stripping away blame.
We are. And we are stripping away deserving. This is the deepest cut. Sapolsky goes after the concept of just deserts.
Walk us through this. Because getting what you deserve is deeply ingrained in us. It's the plot of almost every movie. The bad guy gets punished, the good guy gets the girl.
It's the foundation of our justice system and our egos. But look at the logic. If you didn't choose your genes, and you didn't choose your parents, which you didn't, and you didn't choose the environment you grew up in or the century you were born in.
How can you be responsible for the outcome?
How can you be? So if you're a bad person, if you have a short temper or violent impulses, it's just because a biological rollout went wrong.
Yes.
You cannot deserve punishment for a biological accident you didn't control.
So sin is just a bug in the code.
It completely obliterates the traditional religious concept of sin. Sin implies a choice to defy goodness. It implies you stood at a crossroads and freely chose the dark path. But if that choice is determined by antecedents, by neurons firing based on prior causes, then sin is just a malfunction. It's a broken gear.
But hold on. This cuts both ways, doesn't it? And I think this is the part that actually hurts my ego more than the sin part.
It absolutely does. It destroys praise. You don't deserve credit for being smart. You don't deserve credit for being kind. You don't deserve credit for being the good guy.
See, I struggle with that. What about hard work? I studied for my exams. I put in the hours at the gym. I work late to get where I am. You're telling me I don't get credit for the grit.
Sapolsky would ask you, where did that grit come from?
Me. It came from me. My willpower.
But what is willpower? It is a function of your frontal cortex's ability to regulate impulses. It is your dopamine system's ability to sustain effort for a delayed reward. And who built your frontal cortex and your dopamine system?
My genes and my childhood.
Exactly. Even the ability to try hard is a biological gift. It's luck. You are lucky that you have a brain capable of discipline. Someone with severe ADHD or a damaged frontal lobe from a childhood accident doesn't have that option.
So they can't just try harder.
They cannot will themselves to focus any more than a person with no legs can will themselves to run.
That is incredibly humbling. It kind of flattens the hierarchy of human worth, doesn't it?
It completely levels it. The CEO isn't better than the janitor. He's just luckier. The saint isn't better than the sinner. She just had a better starting hand. There's no moral difference, only a biological one.
This creates a massive theological tension, though. If there's no sin and no merit, the universe starts to look very empty, very cold.
Sapolsky touches on this, the conflict between omniscience and free will. It's an old theological debate. If God knows the future, you cannot choose. If God is outside time, the future has already happened from his perspective.
Right, the whole paradox.
And Sapolsky's conclusion is stark. The universe is an empty, indifferent place where atoms come together to form you. There is no cosmic scoreboard. No one is keeping a tally.
Okay, so if there is no scoreboard, if there is no sin, what do we do with the dangerous people? This is the practical question. If I can't blame a murderer because he has a broken machine, do I just let him go?
No.
Sorry about the bad life of the biology. You're free to go.
Yeah. Absolutely not. And this is crucial. Sapolsky isn't saying we let dangerous people roam free. He shifts from a moral justice model to a quarantine model.
Okay, a quarantine model.
And to explain this, he introduces us to a fascinating character from the 16th century, Johan Weyer.
Johan Weyer. I haven't heard of him.
Most people haven't. He was a Dutch physician in the 1500s. Now, context is key here. This was the height of the witch trials. Europe was in a panic. They were burning women at the stake by the thousands.
A truly dark period.
And Johan Weyer was a man of his time. He was a devout believer. He even calculated, and this is a real number from his book, that Satan had an army of exactly 7,405,926 demons.
That is suspiciously specific. Did he count them?
Apparently so. He believed in demons, he believed in witches, but he wanted to reform the justice system. At the time, one of the tests for a witch was to read her the story of the crucifixion while torturing her.
Okay.
If she didn't cry, she was a witch.
Because a good Christian woman would be moved to tears even while being tortured.
Exactly. And if she was dry-eyed, it was proof she was in league with the devil. But Weyer, despite his dogma, was a doctor. He used logic and biology.
Even back then?
Even back then. He argued that old women shouldn't be executed for not crying. Not because witches aren't real, but because lacrimal glands atrophy with age.
Wait, really? His defense was, her tear ducts are dried up.
Yes. He argued that physically, old women often can't create tears. He replaced a moral evil explanation with a biological explanation. He didn't say there are no witches. He just narrowed the gap of who got burned.
He introduced the wedge of science into the block of dogma.
That's a great way to put it.
That's incredible. It's a baby step, but it's the exact same logic Sapolsky is using. It's not Satan, it's biology.
It is. Weyer was the first step toward what Sapolsky calls the quarantine model.
Explain the quarantine model. How do we apply that to a modern criminal?
Think about a car. You're driving and your brakes fail. The car rolls down a hill and hits a pedestrian. It's a tragedy. Now, do you blame the car?
Else not.
Do you get out and scream at the car, calling it a sinner? Do you beat the car with a stick to teach it a lesson?
No, that would be insane. You fix the brakes.
And if you can't fix the brakes, if the car is fundamentally unfixable and dangerous...
You take it off the road, you put it in a garage, you scrap it, you make sure it can't drive anymore.
Exactly. You quarantine it. But, and this is the key, you don't do it to punish the car. You don't do it because you hate the car. You don't think the car is evil. You do it solely to protect everyone else.
You're removing the malice from it.
Completely. And Sapolsky argues this is how we must treat dangerous humans.
So take someone like Anders Breivik, the Norwegian terrorist who murdered 77 people, mostly kids. He is clearly dangerous.
Yes. And under the quarantine model, you lock him up. You keep him away from society forever if necessary, but you do not do it to punish him. You don't do it because he is evil. You do it because he is broken. You view him like a car with cut brake lines.
That is a huge emotional shift. Because, honestly, I want to hate him. I want him to suffer. If I were a parent of one of those kids, I would want retribution. I would want to know he's in pain.
We all do. Sapolsky admits this freely. Evolution gave us a visceral desire for retribution. We get a dopamine hit when we see a bad person get punished. It feels like justice.
This feels right.
It feels right. But overcoming that desire, that biological urge for vengeance, is the hardest part of abandoning the free will dogma. It requires us to look at a monster and say, that is a machine that went wrong. It's tragic, not evil.
It feels unsatisfied. It lacks that emotional closure. It feels hollow.
It does. And that lack of closure, that emptiness, leads us to the existential crisis. Because if we accept all of this, no captain, no God, no free will, no justice in the cosmic sense, what is left?
The void.
The void. Sapolsky talks about terror management theory. We humans have two great terrors. The first is pretty obvious. The terror of death, we know we are going to die.
And the second?
The terror of meaninglessness, the fear that the uncaptained ship is real, that we're just atoms bumping around. We cling to free will and we cling to religion because the alternative, an indifferent universe where things just happen because of physics, is terrifying.
It sounds like despair. If I'm just a machine, why bother getting out of bed? Why love anyone? Why try?
Sapolsky illustrates this despair with a short story by the sci-fi writer Ted Chiang. It's titled, What's Expected of Us? And it features a little gadget called the Predictor.
I love Ted Chiang. He wrote this story Arrival was based on.
Yeah.
How does this gadget work?
It's incredibly simple. It's just a small handheld box with a button and a green light. But here's the catch. The light turns on 1 second before you push the button.
Before. How?
The circuit sends the signal back in time. So you hold it, you see the light flash, and you say to yourself, okay, I'm not going to push it, I'll defy it. You try to resist.
But you can't.
You find you cannot stop yourself. Your finger moves. You push the button. The light was right. The machine proved, infallibly, that your action was predetermined before you consciously decided to do it.
That would drive you crazy.
In the story, it destroys civilization. It causes a condition called akinetic mutism.
What is that?
It's a waking coma. People realize their future is fixed, so they stop eating, they stop talking, they just sit there. The realization that their choices don't matter hollows them out. They just stop.
That is the ultimate nightmare of determinism. This is why some philosophers, the compatibilists, fight so hard to keep free will alive. People like Daniel Dennett.
Exactly. They argue that even if determinism is true, we must maintain the illusion. It's a noble lie. We need to believe it to stay sane. We need to believe the captain is on the bridge, even if he isn't.
So, we're back to the beginning. Do we lie to ourselves to stay happy? Or do we face the truth and risk the void?
Sapolsky's final charge in the book is clear. He says, no, we cannot lie to ourselves. We are rational beings. We must face the truth.
Even if it hurts?
Yes.
Even if it leads to akinetic mutism?
Especially if it hurts. We must accept that we are biological machines. We must accept there is no captain. We have to be brave enough to stare into that void.
But here's my question. Sapolsky himself, does he actually live like this? Can he look at a criminal and feel zero hate? Can he look at his own kids and feel zero pride? Because he's asking for something that sounds superhuman.
That is the paradox. And honestly, it's what makes the book so human and bearable. Sapolsky admits, quite vulnerably, that he fails at this constantly.
He does.
All the time. He still feels hate. He still feels praise. He still wants to see the bad guys get punished in movies. He admits he can't fully turn off his own programming.
Because what's the point if even the world's expert on this can't do it?
The point is the effort, the struggle. The effort to view others without judgment as products of luck is the only moral path forward. The absence of free will doesn't mean running amok.
It means running with compassion.
Exactly. It means running with compassion.
That's where we land.
Yes. It means realizing that the sinner is just a broken machine, and the saint is just a lucky one. If you can really internalize that, even just for a moment, you can't hate anyone. You can't be arrogant about your own success. You can only feel sorrow for the broken ones and gratitude for your own luck.
That is a powerful place to land. It turns the cold science of determinism into something actually quite warm.
Yeah.
It's a science of empathy.
That's it.
It's forgiveness, not because of divine command, but because of biological understanding.
Exactly. It's the ultimate form of empathy. It is seeing the machinery in everyone, including yourself.
Well, on that note, we're going to leave you to ponder your own machinery. As you go about your day, ask yourself, are you doing what you're doing because you chose to? Or because a million little gears in your history turned and brought you here?
It's turtles all the way down.
Turtles all the way down. Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you in the next deep dive.
Take care.